So could you tell me where are you all from? So where in Ukraine are you joining us from today? So Lviv, fantastic. What's the weather like in Lviv? Okay, Vinnytsia, fantastic. It's one of my favorite cities in Ukraine. Cloudy, yeah, it's the same. Same here in Kiev today, quite grey. But you know, it makes staying inside a bit easier when it's grey outside. Cherkasy, fantastic. Kiev, it's great to see so many of you joining us from all over the country. Okay, more from, so it's sunny. Okay, sunny and warm in Lviv. Okay, I'm quite jealous then. Dnipro, hello everyone. Wow, it's fantastic to see so many of you here already. So, first today, I'd like to say thank you to all of you that attended my last webinar, so the webinar on video-based activities. So I hope some of you have had time to use some of those activities with your students. Again, I'd love to know what your students thought of these and how effective they were. I might still be new to some of you, so I'd like to introduce myself again. So my name is Sam. I'm a methodologist with internal education and also an English teacher at the London School of English. So I've been an English teacher for about 9 years, and I've been living and working in Kiev for about 2 years now. So if any of you have attended any of my seminars in Kiev or Zhytomyr, then please say hello in the chat box. Great, so more of you from Kiev, Odessa. What's the weather like in Odessa today? Okay, fantastic. And just a reminder that everyone that attends today's webinar will get a certificate. Okay, so we really value the fact that you've joined us today. We know how busy you must all be, so it's great that you're all here. So you'll get that within about a week of today. Okay, so we'll just wait for a few more people to join us before we begin. But great, yeah, continue to let me know where you're joining us from. It's great to have this interaction with you all. So Lviv, no, I haven't taught any seminars in Lviv yet, but hopefully in the future. I did visit Lviv last year, and yeah, I thought it was a fantastic city. Very, very nice. It's quite similar to York in England, quite a historic kind of city. Okay, great. Brovary, Kiev, fantastic. Odessa as well. Yeah, I have been to Odessa. I had a swim while I was there. I think it was October 2 years ago. So the water wasn't very warm, but it certainly woke me up. Okay, fantastic. Well, from Lviv, it's great to see you. Hello, Svetlana. Hello. Kharkiv as well. It's great. So many people from all over Ukraine. Okay, good. Irina, hello. Good. More of you joining us from Lviv. That's excellent. Odessa, Lviv, so all over Ukraine. Great. Okay, so we'll just wait for a few more people to join us before we begin. Okay, again, if I've met any of you before in Kiev, you know, at the schools that I've come to, or if you've come to any of my seminars, then please say hello in the chat box. Okay, great. From Cherkasy as well. Excellent. So I think we really have people from all over Ukraine joining us today. Excellent. So still a lot of places that I need to visit and that I want to visit in the future. Okay, Great. So, Arena, this is your second time. Good. It's good to see you here again. Okay, excellent. So from School 98 in Kiev, hello. So it's great that you can join us. So how is everyone today? Is everyone busy at the moment? I'm sure you are. Okay, great. So, okay, well, let's begin. So again, I'd like to say thank you for all of you that attended my last webinar. That was on video-based activities. Yes, so I hope you managed to use some of those with your students. I hope they enjoyed them, and I hope that you found them effective. Again, I might be new to some of you, so I'd like to introduce myself just one more time. So again, my name is Sam. I'm a methodologist with internal education and an English teacher at the London School of English in Kiev. So as I said before, I've been an English teacher for about 9 years, and I've been living and working in Kiev for 2 years. So if you've been to any of my webinars or seminars before, seminars in Kiev or Zhytomyr, then please say hello in the chat box. Okay. Again, a reminder that everyone that attends today's webinar will get a certificate afterwards. Okay. We really appreciate that you're all joining us. I know how busy you must be, so it's great that you're here with us, with me today. The material that I'm using for some of today's webinar is from Gold Experience. So how many of you are using this title at the moment? Okay, great. So I see a few of you are already using it, so I'm sure you know it's a great book. It's one of my favorites. Okay, the reason I've chosen it for this webinar is because of the great way that it combines general English and exam preparation. So we'll be using some of that later today. So as you know, today's webinar is on developing speaking skills for discussion-based exam tasks. So I would like to start today's webinar with a quote. So, the foolish and the dead never change their... Okay, can you complete this quote? So you can send me in the chat box. Okay, some good answers. We've got habits, mind, life, interesting. I've seen the correct answer. Opinions, very good. So we all know that giving our opinion and listening and reacting to the opinions of others is an important part of everyday life. Okay, we can call these real world skills discussion skills. Okay, if our students are planning to get a job at an international company, study abroad, or take a speaking exam, then they need well-developed discussion skills. Well, in today's webinar, we're going to be looking at some practical activities that we can use to develop the speaking skills that our students need for these discussion tasks in different exams. Okay, of course, you can use any of these activities for developing your students' discussion skills in general as well, because we know how important this skill is. So can you tell me which English exams feature a discussion task? So this is a task where the student needs to give their opinion to the examiner or discuss something with a partner. Okay, good. You've seen lots of correct answers there. Yes. Arena, you're correct. It is almost all of the main international exams have a task like this. Okay, so that's why it's so important that we make sure that our students are well prepared for this type of exam task. So, the first activity we're going to look at today is a Spidergram discussion. So this is adapted from a task in the FCE and CAE exam, so the collaborative decision-making task. So how many of you are familiar with Spidergrams? Okay, good. So I see a lot of you already know about Spidergrams, but today we're looking at Spidergrams with a twist. Okay, so they're a bit different. Okay, before we do any discussion practice in class, the first thing that we need to do is to generate interest in the topic, to engage our students with the topic that we want to discuss. So, how can we engage our students with a topic and generate interest before a discussion? So, what are some different ways that we can generate interest in a topic? Can you send me your ideas? Fantastic. Yeah, so maybe brainstorming. Okay, personal questions. Yeah, fantastic. So pictures, video as well. Maybe one of you attended my last webinar. Yeah, so just a few ideas. We know text, pictures, and videos. If you attended my last webinar, you know that my favorite way to generate interest in a topic is with videos. Okay, by showing the students a short video on a topic, we immediately grab their attention, we immediately engage them with a particular topic, and it also gives us an authentic context for the discussion that follows. So, before we look at our Spidergram with a twist, we're going to watch a video together. I'd like you to watch the video and answer the question. What is the aim of the device? Okay, but save your answers until after the video. Okay, so let's watch carefully.
What does it smell like in the produce section here?
Kind of fruity.
The aromas in the aisles at this Brooklyn supermarket are intense, but the smells aren't just coming from the products on the shelves.
So, do you think the smell in here is coming from these grapefruits?
That's an interesting question. I know with modern technology, it could come from a lot of sources.
This savvy shopper just might be onto something.
See that little black machine behind you?
Whoa.
Do you have any idea what that is?
Thing? It's blowing a breeze, so it's kind of funky.
So
Don't tell me it's a grapefruit scent what do they call the aerator?
Actually, they're called scent air machines, and this supermarket has 5 of them, each piping out a different smell, including grapefruit in the produce section.
I think it's a grapefruit, is it? Or is it not a grapefruit?
It is.
Chocolate in the candy aisle.
It improves our mood, you know.
It makes you happy?
Yes.
And rosemary focaccia by the bakery.
It smells like it's home.
What looks like part of a typical ventilation system is part of a marketing campaign that targets a shopper's sense of smell.
The machine is really small, so it's good for us. Nobody can see that.
The store's merchandise coordinator says she installed the machines 2 months ago after hearing about them overseas.
I think because of these machines, it makes customer more hungrier.
The goal is simple: make customers hungry and in turn, open up their wallets.
Does the smell make you hungry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, sales in the produce department have gone up at least 7%. And with each machine costing $99 a month, this market thinks it's made a good investment.
And so far, so good.
Yes, so far so good. Everybody's enjoying it. Everybody loves it.
Okay. So, Can you tell me, what is the aim of the device? Okay, lots of good ideas there. So, okay, yes. So, to sell more, to increase sales, to attract customers. Okay, yeah, all of these are correct answers. Very good. So now, just to check you're paying attention, another question. What different smells can it create? Do you remember? Very good. So chocolates. What else? Grapefruits. Anything else? Yes, very good. So this smell from the bakery, this rosemary focaccia bread. Okay, very good. And now a personal question for you. Okay, what's your favorite smell in supermarkets? I mean, personally, I like the smell of coffee, but what smells do you like in supermarkets? Yeah, so the smell of the bakery. Very nice, yes. Okay, so I'm sure this would work on all of us as well then. Okay, maybe you noticed in the video that there were a lot of different accents. Okay, we all know that English is an international language, so the more accents that we can expose our students to, the better. Okay, this just makes the video a lot more authentic. Good. So now we've generated interest in the topic, we can start to build the spidergram together. So here we have the middle of a spidergram and a discussion question. So what is the best way for a supermarket to attract visitors? So because we've watched the video, we know one way is with technology. Yeah, so this scent air machine. But can you tell me, what are some other ways that supermarkets can attract visitors? So send me your ideas in the chat box. Fantastic. So a variety of products. Good. The position of products. Good. Advertisements. Excellent. Discounts. Yeah. So these are all great ideas. So if I was doing this online with my students, I would write their ideas on the screen, or in the classroom, we'd put their ideas onto the whiteboard or blackboard. Okay. Again, by personalizing the discussion, getting the students to have some personal input, they're going to be a lot more engaged. So here were some of my ideas. Okay. So now for the discussion, I would now put the students in pairs. I would give them 2 minutes to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each of the options. I would give them 1 more minute afterwards to try and decide which option they think is the best. We could then extend this activity by dividing the options into A's and B's and dividing the students into A's and B's. So now the students who are A need to try and persuade B to choose one of their options. Okay, the students who are B need to persuade A to choose one of their options, but they still need to only choose one option. By doing this, we're encouraging the students to disagree with each other a bit. Okay, in my experience, in these kind of discussions, often the students don't like to disagree with each other. Okay, but we want to try and get the students to use a range of language. So it's good for them to disagree sometimes. So let's just review the procedure. So first, we generated interest with the video and the comprehension questions. Then we brainstormed some of the ideas from the students. Okay, we personalized the content of the discussion. Then we put the students in pairs, and asked them to discuss the advantages and disadvantages, can you remember how much time should we give the students to do this? Can you remember? Very good, Angela. So 2 minutes. We give the students 2 minutes to do this, okay? By giving the students a clear time limit, we really focus them on the task, okay? This is also the same amount of time that they get in this CAE and FCE exam. Then we give them 1 minute to come to a final decision, to choose one of the options. After this, we would get the students to report back, okay? So to tell the class which option they chose and to explain why. Finally, we could repeat the activity with a different discussion question or extend it by splitting the class into A's and B's. So I really like this Spidergram discussion activity. It gives the discussion a very clear framework and a very logical progression as well. So an important part of developing our students' discussion skills is to make sure they know and use a good range of functional language. So, for example, this could be phrases for giving or reacting to opinions, okay? So, for example, giving opinions. Can you tell me in the chat box what phrases could we use for giving opinions? So what phrases could we use? Excellent. So in my opinion, okay, I think, I believe, yeah. So just some of my ideas here. So we need to get the students to use a good range of this functional language. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a moment. But the question is, when should you give students this functional language input? So if we look at the procedure again for the Spidergram, at which stage would you give them this functional language input? So tell me your ideas. So we're saying before 3, okay, or 2, 4. Okay. Well, personally, I think that the best time to give the students this functional language input would be after the students have done the activity once and before they repeat the activity. Those of you who attended my last webinar, that was a test for you, okay? So you might remember us talking about this, okay? The first time the students do the activity, okay, maybe they find some parts of it difficult. They realize that they have some gaps in their knowledge. We are then able to fill the gaps with this functional language input, okay? Because the students have realized that they have these gaps in their knowledge, it means that when we give them the phrases they need, they are much more likely to actually remember them, to actually learn them, okay? So we can get the students to look at functional language, lists of functional language in the book. So Gold Experience has some great functional language sections, okay? But there is a different way. We can get the students to generate their own lists of functional language, okay? Using an activity called competitive brainstorming, okay? So by using this activity, okay, we can tap into the students' existing knowledge and get them to teach each other. So for this activity, first, we need to put the students into teams, okay? Then we give all the students an area of functional language. For example, phrases for agreeing. We then give them all 1 minute to think of as many phrases as possible. Then we get the students to share these phrases with the class, but the students only get a point if they can think of a phrase that isn't on the lists of the other students. So this really encourages our students to be more creative, okay, to think of this less common and more advanced phrases. Okay. Then we can repeat this procedure for other areas of functional language, so the students have a good bank of phrases for each of these areas. So a common problem I used to have with my students is that even after we teach our students all this fantastic functional language, or after we brainstorm all this functional language, sometimes they don't use it. Okay, so we can't guarantee that they'll use it. They still use the same one or two phrases. Well, a solution to this is functional language cards. So we give the students the phrases on pieces of paper, okay? While the students are in a discussion, they have to use the phrases on their cards. After they've used them, they put them down. The student who is able to use the most of the phrases is the winner. Okay, to save us time and to save us effort, we can get the students to make their own cards, okay, using phrases from the book or their own brainstormed lists. Another way we can get the students to use a range of functional language is with challenge cards. So on pieces of paper, we write some communicative challenges for our students. For example, use 3 different phrases for agreeing with something your partner says. So after the students have completed a challenge, they can put down the card. Again, the winner is the student who is able to put down the most cards. So after we've made these cards, we can use them again and again with lots of different classes. We can also adapt this activity to encourage our students maybe to use a range of language by putting some language challenges in as well. Okay, we all know that encouraging our students to use a range of language is really important in the exam, because this is one of the main kind of marking criteria. They need to show off how much language they know. So another activity that I love using with my students, okay, it's a really simple activity for developing their discussion skills, is the yes and no game. So for this, first, we give our students a discussion question, or we give them a statement and ask if they agree or disagree. Okay. The students reply, but if they say yes or no, they lose. Okay. So this is to encourage the students to try and give a wider, to try and use some of this functional language, okay, to avoid giving simple answers, okay? So when I play this with my students, usually I don't explain the rules. After you've played a few rounds, the students start to understand that they have to avoid saying yes or no. So it's quite fun. Once the students know the rules, you can then, play with it a bit. You can continue the discussion and try and trick them into accidentally saying yes or no. Okay. So I know when I do it with my students, sometimes they end up hating me because I've managed to trick them into saying yes or no. Yeah, some students might say it's cruel, but yeah, you have to be cruel to be kind. Sometimes we're trying to encourage them to use a range of language. So let's play a quick game together. We need to encourage our students to use a range of different language in discussions. Don't you agree? So tell me in the chat box, do you agree? Okay, good. I've seen some yeses and nos. Okay. Fantastic. You are absolutely right. Good. So I see a lot of you have avoided saying yes or no. So you would win the game. Okay. Very good. So now another common problem that we have when we are practicing discussions is trying to think of discussion questions that our students will actually want to discuss, that they will find engaging. If our students aren't interested in the discussion question, then yeah, they might not perform as well. So a solution to this is by getting students to write their own discussion questions for each other. Okay, we can call these student-generated discussion questions. So first, we take the topic that we have generated interest in. Okay. Then we give the students some typical speaking exam discussion question starters. Okay. So we put them on pieces of paper. It's possible to find these on the internet for any of the kind of main exams. So we give the students these discussion question like frames. We then ask the students to complete the questions with their own ideas based on the topic. So the students complete them with their own ideas. It's usually better to put them in pairs to do this. Okay. Then we collect in the discussion questions from the students. Okay. We then give the questions to different students to discuss. Okay. If we're worried that there might be some grammatical mistakes in the questions, we can monitor while they're writing the questions and give them input, or the students who receive the questions can check the grammar first. Okay. So in my experience, students really enjoy being given the responsibility to write questions for their classmates, and they find it quite engaging to answer questions that their classmates have written. So it just makes it a bit more personal for them. Okay. And it also saves us effort. Once you have these question starters, you can use them for lots of different topics. Okay. We can modify this activity by turning it into a gallery walk. So after we collect in the student's question, we can put them around the classroom. Okay. Then we put the students in pairs and we ask them to walk around the classroom, spend a certain amount of time discussing each discussion question. So it just injects a bit of energy into the classroom and makes discussion practice a bit more engaging, okay, a bit more dynamic. Okay, so once we have done this with a few different topics, you start to build up a bank of student-generated questions on all the typical topics that you have in the speaking exam. once we have questions on a few different topics, we can also do an activity called topic, dice, discussions. So for this, we give each of the typical exam topics a number. We then roll the dice, and whichever number you get, whichever number the students get, they have to answer a question from this particular topic. So it's only a simple modification, it's only a simple activity, but it just makes exam preparation a bit more varied and a bit more interesting for the students. I think this is a good one to use just before the exam, when you've already covered all of the different topics, okay? So, before we look at the next activity, I have a discussion question for you here. So, how important is it to buy locally grown fruit and vegetables? So tell me in the chat box, what do you think? How important is it? Okay, so it's rather important, very important. Good, it's important because they're fresh. Okay, good, it's good for local business. So lots of good answers. So here we have maybe a typical student's response. On my opinion, I believe it's absolutely important, as everyone should try to support local farmers. So, can you find any mistakes in this student's answer? Okay, good. Yes. So I can see from the chat box that you've spotted all of the mistakes. So, in my opinion, it's very important and should try to. So we all know about these type of activities, these find and correct the mistakes activities. Okay, this is nothing new. But how can we adapt these kind of activities to highlight common mistakes that students make in the speaking exam, and also to develop their discussion skills? Well, the answer is with, one moment, a common mistakes role play. So for this activity, first, we need to think of common mistakes that students make in discussions, or common mistakes that students make in the speaking exam. We then need to write them on pieces of paper, but we need to write them as instructions. So, for example, dominate the discussion. Don't let your partner speak. Check what the question was halfway through your answer. Don't support your opinion with reasons or examples. Avoid eye contact with the examiner. Okay, so these are all common mistakes. So then we share these role play cards with the students, and we check that they understand the meaning of them. Okay. Then we can put the students into groups of 4 or 3, okay, and we give each student a role play card, but they have to keep it a secret. Okay. Then we give the group a discussion question. 2 of the students need to discuss the question and try and include the mistakes that were on their cards. The other 2 need to watch and try and spot what mistakes the students are making. Okay. After this, we get the students to switch roles, Okay, they can then report back to the class and say which mistakes they think the students had on their cards. We can also have a good discussion about how to avoid these mistakes. When I do this with my students, okay, we usually have a really good, really productive discussion afterwards. Afterwards, if we have time, again, we can repeat the discussion, but this time without the mistakes. Okay, so my students really enjoy this. For some reason, they really enjoy having the opportunity to do things they know are wrong. Okay, it's also fun to see the students really exaggerating or going over the top with the mistakes. Okay, that's fine. It just makes it more memorable for the other students. So, do you think that your students would enjoy this activity? So please, you can tell me in the chat box. Yeah? Great. So yeah, I really recommend that you try it. Again, once you've made the cards, you can use them again and again with different classes. So, we've already looked at quite a few activities today, but I've got 2 more for you. These are just quick and easy discussion activities. So the first one, philosophical chairs. Okay, so for this activity, simply, the teacher asks the students a question or gives them a statement. The students then move to either side of the room, depending on if they agree or disagree. Okay, again, it just makes the discussion a bit more dynamic. We can then start or continue the discussion from across the room. So it just makes the exam preparation a bit more exciting and a bit more varied. Another activity that I often use with my secondary classes and also my adult classes is coin flip opinions. So we give the students a discussion question, but before they answer, they need to flip a coin. If it's heads, they have to agree. If it's tails, they have to disagree. So often this really encourages our students to see a topic from a different point of view. Okay, students find it challenging, but it's really interesting to see how they cope with this. Again, just really easy, quick activities. So finally today, I'd like to give you a few tips just for some successful discussion practice in your classrooms. So the first tip, we talked about it earlier, is generating interest. Okay, it really is important to kind of engage our students with the topic and to generate interest before we start the discussion. Okay, can you remember what were some of the ways that we can generate interest? Maybe you can send me in the chat box. Yes, it's my favorite videos. I can see there. Yes, but also pictures or text. Good. Some brainstorming as well. Okay, very good. So also, for students, often the speaking exam is the most stressful part of the whole exam. That's why it's so important that we try and reduce the pressure on our students as much as possible. If our students are stressed, then they can't concentrate. Yeah, it's very difficult for them to perform to the best of their abilities. So one way we can reduce pressure on our students is by always giving them a short amount of preparation time. So we don't just surprise them with a question and expect an immediate answer. We make sure the students have a bit of time to think about their answer. Also, we can do this with snowball discussions or these pyramid discussions, which I'm sure you know about. Yeah, so we put the students in pairs first for a discussion, then small groups, then bigger groups. So this allows the students to build their confidence. It's a bit better than just throwing the student into a whole class discussion immediately. Also, I'm sure we know that it's important that our students change partners. They change their discussion partners. If they're with the same partner all the time, then they get a bit lazy, okay? Also, the students are learning from each other as well as from you, okay? So if we can encourage our students to be with different partners, they're going to be learning more language and more phrases from each other. And finally, when we are having a whole class discussion, it's important that we aren't at the center of it, okay? We should try and encourage cross-class discussion as much as possible. So when we ask a student for their opinion, okay, so I say, Ilya, what do you think? Do you agree? He gives his opinion. But instead of me saying, yeah, fantastic, I completely agree, I don't say that. I simply turn to a different student and say, okay, maybe Anna, what do you think? Do you agree with Ilya? Okay. So instead of giving immediate feedback, get the other students to give their opinion. Okay, so take a step back. So unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this webinar and I hope you've learned a lot of practical activities that you can use with your students to develop their speaking skills for these discussion tasks. Again, on the screen here, this is just a summary of everything we've looked at today. Again, please let me know on the Dinternal Facebook page or on Instagram what your students think of these activities. Let me know how they go. Yeah, it's always great to get some feedback. So also, just a reminder that the activities that I used today and the video were from Gold Experience. As I said before, I really like this book because of the way that it combines general English and exam preparation. There are also 8 levels, okay? So there's a few extra levels, which means that, for example, there is a B2 plus level, which is great if you've got a strong group. You can really kind of push them with these kind of pre-advanced levels or these plus levels. A reminder that everyone will get a certificate for attending today. So we really appreciate you joining us. I know how busy you must all be, so it's great that you're here. And thank you for all your comments in the chat box. You know, I'm stuck at home. We're all stuck at home. So it's great to have this interaction with you all. It makes us feel a bit less lonely that we can have this interaction. So thank you to everyone. You're welcome. I see all the messages now. It's fantastic. And finally, I want to let you know that starting from the 12th of May, Dinternal will be running a series of book presentations to help you choose the best resource for the next academic year. So if you go on the website, you can register, and then in these presentations, you'll be finding out about the activities. Also, importantly, you'll get a really good discount on the books as well. So I'm going to check the chat box now. So if anyone has any questions for me, you can ask me. So anything. So any questions before we finish? Okay, thank you everyone. Yeah, you're welcome. Fantastic, thank you. Thank you for joining us. No questions, okay. Good. Thanks a lot. You're welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. Okay, the presentation, the webinar, will be uploaded to the website, I think in maybe a week or two. So you will be able to watch it again if there's anything that you missed. Great. So my moderator today was Natasha. So she did a fantastic job kind of answering your questions as well. She will be staying on for a bit of time now to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. So thank you again. So hopefully I'll see you in the future. Okay. So goodbye. Okay. Do pobачення.